What is up, people of YouTube? I'm your host Vernon. This is the Assiniboine River. Let's fish that. Alright, ladies and gents, when looking at a map of Winnipeg, there's a certain area where I haven't caught that many fish, and that is the Assiniboine River. Now, I have caught one little sauger at Oman's Creek, so I have caught fish at the Assiniboine River, but a couple of times I've tried, especially during winter and early spring. I gave it a couple of tries, but didn't manage to get any fish. So I thought I wanted to wait until it's well and truly summer, get some baits out there, and get on some fish. And I thought to myself, why not give an official try of the Assiniboine River at Assiniboine Park? Whether you're visiting the Leaf, the zoo, or any of the different amenities in the park, it is truly a great park to be at. But I'm concerned about the fishing, and that is why I made my way to the Assiniboine Bridge. I'm going to be fishing near the bridge to see whether I get on any fish. Alright, so we're going to be fishing right underneath the bridge today, and of course no bridge fishing session is complete without having the mandatory little shopping trolley near the bridge. But I have to say, it's a pretty good, nice and clean looking area, and my goal is going to be getting baits out into the water. I'm hoping to stay close to the pylons, maybe going for the second little pylon there, little place where the current should be a little less intense than in the main current stream. And the little setup that I'm going to be using out there today, that's quite simple. I don't have any more pickerel rigs. I've lost quite a lot of pickerel rigs, so I just simply tied my own little setup. Now all you do is you take a piece of main line and you just make a little loop knot in that. I have 2 loop knots on here, so I can have 2 hooks. Now the downside of doing that is you cannot move your hook up and down like you can with a pickerel rig. But the plus side, this is rather invisible to the fish. It's a lot harder to see this piece of line than it is seeing that little metal piece or the little beads. But it is rather easy to do and easy to use. Now on this, I'm just using little 2-ounce lead weight, and I have 2 different hooks. The first one being a 2-odd circle hook, and the second one is a size 2 circle hook. Now I prefer using circle hooks because they were designed to help you catch the fish and release the fish safely. This little hook point only catches the fish once it's trying to leave the fish's mouth. So the idea is you should get less gut-hooked fish, rather get them hooked in the corner of the lip, which is a much safer way to then release the fish back into the water. That's why I'm using circle hooks. Now why am I using 2 different sizes? You can see 2-odd versus a size 2. Well, the one is simply for going for catfish, the other one is for smaller fish, something like a perch, maybe some red horse, anything that's a bit smaller mouth but higher up in the water column. That's why the top one I have a smaller hook. Now I'm just simply going to bait my setup with some night crawlers, get it out into the water, and we wait for some fish to show up. We have a little fish on. First little fish for today, tiny little channel catfish. Lovely little patterns on him, also some parasites on him, but let's get this little guy back to the water. So at least we're not going to get skunked today. Going to give him a bit of a drop, and off he goes. Now if it's a bigger fish, I'll go down to the water and release him safely. But that little guy, because of the sharp spines on them, if you try to put him in the water and he starts splashing around, those spines get you, it can be rather sore. So I'd rather just throw them back, get him away from me. It's only been 15 minutes. We have our second little fish on. 15 minutes of fishing. Pretty good fishing, I think, but it is feeling like another small catfish. I think we're going to have to weed through all the small ones to find the better fish. This one is a tad bigger than the previous one. Longer but skinny. Let's get him back to the water. Off he goes. So it seems that getting quite a lot of catfish out there in the middle of the stream. So now I want to try and test out a few different things. I'm going to throw towards the piling. I'm going to throw in closer, wait a while and see if we get some different fish. Alright, so I'm quickly trying to tie on a new setup. Just lost my setup. Throwing out a little Carolina rig. Tiny piece of night crawler. And we get the bigger catfish using the smaller thing. Well, this is why you don't fish off of the bridge. If you hook into a fish like this, there's no way you're going to get that up there without having the proper gear. This is interesting. I have a little stone cat that went for my night crawler, and this catfish actually went for that little stone cat. So I didn't catch this one on night crawler. This one is on tiny little stone cat. Now, because I'm using a heavy setup, it's sometimes easy to bring in this fish way too quickly. So I just want him to have a couple of runs so we can try and net him. You can see my tiny little stone cat on the line every once in a while. So without me even knowing, I was lifelining a little stone cat, and this channel catfish decided to go for it. Alright, we got our little catfish in the net. You can see that little stone cat. He's threaded on the line. He didn't survive. But lovely little catch. My biggest fish from the Assiniboine River thus far. Let's quickly have a look at this fish. See that circle hook, got him in the corner of the mouth. Decent catfish, has quite a lot of leeches on him. This is a 78 centimeter, that's 30.5 inches. It's a nice 30.5 inch channel catfish from the Assiniboine. So, decent catfish landed. Let's get this poor guy back to the water. Alright, lovely little 31.5 inch channel catfish from the Assiniboine. Let's get him back. Good, strong, quick kick, and he's off. Now, a few things I want to mention. This particular substrate is sandy, not as muddy as the Red River. But after having that catfish splash around some water, it is very slippery, so be very careful. And you can see, this is the little stone cat that went for my baits. That's the piece of night crawler. But after getting my baits, that big catfish decided this looks like a tasty meal. So this little stone cat ended up being our bait. We're getting a few tiny little taps, so I just want to check to see whether we have some stone cats or anything. No stone cat, but whatever it was, it took our baits. This little fish took it and sat still in one place, but it is a baby little drum, something different from getting catfish. Lovely little freshwater drum. Once again, just going to give him a bit of a toss into the water. It's a bit of a mess going down this muddy embankment. Dropping him head first, and he swam off. So a completely different take from all the others. They're not putting a massive bend in the rod. There was a small little tick, and then nothing. And that fish sat in one particular spot with our little baits. Now I have tied on a new setup, so I have a new rig all ready to go. But I like the idea of this little downwards moving action of the bait, using a small lead weight, letting my baits bounce down. It's not getting snagged on anything, and it seems to be working to cover more water to get some fish to strike. So I'm going to give that a whirl for a while. If we don't get any more fish, tie on the bigger setup, go into deeper water. But for now, I'm going to fish around the shallows, bouncing it on the bottom. Alright, that was a proper take from this fish. So what you want to see is a bend in the rod. Ferocious little drum. Another little lovely freshwater drum. Got him hooked nice in the corner of the mouth. Second little drum for today. Let's get this guy back to the water. And off he goes. Swam onto the mud here for a moment, but he got back down. All good. Now, it's very hard to see, but it is quite an embankment, and this mud is getting very slippery, so that's why I'm not going down to the water. I only do that if it's a big fish and it's worth risking it. I know it's not nice to throw fish, but these fish can handle a little fall like this. If they get any bigger than that, then it's worth going down to the water. Back to getting baby channel catfish. Let's get this guy back. Alright, so I did not get a bend in my rod or a hit or anything, but my line immediately started moving sideways. And we have a little fish on. Now this looks to be a hog sucker, something I haven't caught before. Just quickly want the sirens to go past, but this is going to be a new lifer for me. It's either something like a white sucker or a hog sucker. I will have to research. Let's get this fish out of water to have a look at him. And there we are. New species of sucker fish landed for me. Thinking this might be a white sucker. He has a wound on his tail that's healed. Nice little fish. Just want to get a measurement of him because this is going to be a new PB for me. But before we do that, let's get him back to the water to get some oxygen. Now, like I said, I'll have to research what type of sucker this is. If you know what it is, please tell me. But I will put a little name here. This is 37 centimeters. That's going to be 14.5 inches. New species for the life list. Just want to keep him in the water as much as possible, give him some oxygen before we take one last good look at him. Happy with this little catch. Lovely little sucker fish. Let's get him back to the water. Now with this fish, I don't want to be throwing him, but he's also not that big. So I'm just going to lower the net and we'll have him swim out of the net. And off he goes. So like I said, that was a very weird take. Didn't get a bend on the rod or a hit or anything. My line just suddenly went from the deep water, swam all the way to the shore. But that's a new species landed as well. It's a pretty good day out here at the Assiniboine. And once again, tiny little channel cat. That's what you would expect in throwing out night crawlers. Let's get this guy back. And he made it back to the water. Dropped a bit on the mud there. He started squealing. Still have our little piece of night crawler, so I'm just gonna re-thread that on the hook, get it back out there. There we go, another little stone cat. This one should be a good size to lifeline, but we're not going to do that. Let's get him back to the water. Another little channel cat. Let's get him back. Off he goes. Bit bigger than the last few, but still getting some channel catfish. Let's get this guy back down there. Alright, ladies and gents, it is supposed to get rainy today, so I thought we can always go below the little bridge and hide from the rain. But to be honest, it's been 2.5 hours to 3 hours of fishing, and we did pretty well out there. Now, I'm not going to show you all of the catfish that I caught out there today, but whenever throwing out night crawlers, you kind of expect the catfish. So I'm happy we got on some different species out there as well. And one little thing I want to remark in this video, I lost 2 of my pickerel setups out there, but had no problems with the Carolina rig. So whenever fishing a snaggy spot, when you keep losing those pickerel rigs, think about going for a Carolina rig, having one hook behind your little lead weight. It's just an easy way to get through the cover and through the snags a lot easier. Alright, but that being said, finally got a little dot on the map for where I caught some fish here at Assiniboine. So please do give me a little thumbs up for getting some fish out there. Feel free to ask any questions down below in the comments. And if you're new to the channel, consider hitting subscribe, joining my community. I do weekly videos. Right, but thanks for joining me on this fun little fishing session. And like always, I'll see you next time.